recent reveals have got me thinking, is Cryo going to make a meta comeback? Let's talk about it. My name is Juice, and let's get into it. So what first spurred this idea in my head was the recent reveal of Escoffier, and if you're looking to pull for Escoffier, then you're gonna need Primo Gems. Where can you go to afford these better? Good news! Loot Bar is here to help us out. Loot Bar is a splendid service which can offer you cheaper Stellar Jades compared to the official prices shown in-game. Look at this comparison between the official cost and the Loot Bar cost. New users get a wonderful 8% off, and the prices are up to 23% cheaper compared to the official channel. Loot Bar is a fully saved service and has countless positive reviews, but how does it actually work? Allow me to show you. First, input your UID. That's right, you need no login information whatsoever. Choose your desired package, and then look at that. More Primo Gems for me. This is all legit since the site uses a VPN, which is how they cheapen the Primo Gems, and official top-up methods are used. PS5 and Xbox users can also purchase on Loot Bar. Check out Loot Bar today to save on all your gacha needs. I think it's no secret that Cryo's been in a pretty rough spot for a while now. It's been a long time since the initial glory days of the element. For the uninitiated, for about 2 years, Cryo used to rule the world, because freeze comps were all the rage. Ayaka and Ganyu were some of the most exalted DPSs in the entire game, and then that all came down crumbling whenever Sumeru came out. Ever since around that time period, Cryo has just been neglected. Barely any attention paid to the element whatsoever, which does make sense, considering that it reigned the Genshin meta for so long. A break was ultimately warranted, but it does feel like Hoyoverse overcorrected quite a bit, because Cryo from then on only degraded in value more and more and more until it just became really bad. Even if you take a look at Riesli, who before Sit Lolly was the best limited 5-star Cryo unit, he was underwhelming when compared to his Fontanian peers. I mean, dude, we got multiple S-tier characters during that time. Linny, Mr. Settle Down, Arlecchino, you get the idea. I guess you could say Hoyoverse really froze people's interest in the element. Okay, I'm sorry about that, moving right along. And this just didn't really change for a very long time. And I'm saying this as Cryo's #1 coper. I've just always stuck with this element for whatever reason. It's just always been my favorite, unfortunately. I somehow seem to have a habit of favoring the absolute worst playstyles in Hoyo games. I like DOT and HSR, and then I like Cryo and Genshin. It is so over for me. Not to mention my DPS stunner in ZZZ. But in any case, what's got me thinking that potentially Cryo could make a meta comeback? Well, first of all, I would like to say, I'm not expecting it to return to its former glory. That was insane. Cryo was one of the best possible options. I'm personally not expecting Cryo to become that significant again until we get the Saritsa. Now, whenever we get to Shineznaya, that's when I think that if Cryo is going to return to its former glory days, that's going to be the window for it. But I don't think that the upcoming Nord Cryo region is going to bring back Cryo fully. But I do think that it's going to restore it partially. First off, we have been seeing some attention get paid to Cryo-related reactions recently. Yes, Sit Lolly didn't directly buff Cryo itself, but she did give some attention to Melt, and I always said that the moment that Melt got any attention, it would become an absolute meta beast, and that is what ended up happening. Then you had Moeka herself buffing up individual Cryo units. For example, Ganyu Melt feels really freaking good with Moeka. Oh my goodness, I cannot get over how comfortable those two feel to play together. Applying Pyro right before the Frostflake arrows is such a blessing, and I'm still not over it. You have to understand, as a big Ganyu fan, that was huge for me. And then of course Riesli, he gained a brand new best in slot team. Now granted, the team is less so about his personal damage, and more so about him applying Cryo so that Moeka can melt. But nonetheless, he did get a new best in slot team. And also, that type of team structure isn't really new for him. Riesli's generally always been carried by having really strong synergistic teams. But you get the idea. Cryo is trapped in a cage right now, a cage of mid, and the cracks were starting to show in the bars. Freedom from being mid seemed to be imminent. And then you fast forward to now, where we recently got Escoffier revealed. And if Notlon's patch cycle has been good at producing anything, it's powerful kits and characters. So now that leads me to believe that in some way, shape, or form, Escoffier is going to boost the performance of Cryo massively, thus helping out all of our currently existing Cryo characters a lot, and most likely preparing us for future Cryo characters. And we're going to the Nord Cry next, and while that's not directly Shineznaya, it's still a part of Shineznaya. so that leads me to believe that even if Cryo is not going to be the main focal point of that region, it's still going to be relevant. Another thing is that Hoyoverse tends to like releasing units near the end of the current patch cycle that tend to be very good in the next region over. Now here's the thing, Escoffier is going to be releasing in X.6, and generally those type of units that I just talked about, those tend to come out in about X.7 to X.8. However, Notlon has been a little bit more different when it comes to its timings. They've been quite unique with how they scheduled things, so I don't think it's too far-fetched to believe that they could release that type of character a bit earlier than what we're usually used to. I also just think that it's been long enough. Hoyoverse really doesn't have any reason to keep Cryo being really bad anymore. It's been neglected for ages. It sorta made sense for them to put it on the back burner during Sumeru, because Dendro was the main focus during that time. Brand new element, brand new reactions, it all checks out. Now, in Fontaine, I do think that Cryo should have been thrown a little bit more of a bone, but at least finally during the Notlon patch cycle, we're seeing it make somewhat of a comeback. Also, I think Hoyoverse has done a very good job these past 2 years at taking what were previously completely irrelevant reactions and completely irrelevant archetypes and turning them into something usable, dare I say even meta. For example, who was around when for the longest time, Overload was trash, like complete hot garbage? It was literally a nerf in every single team that you had it in because of the enemy knockback, and because it was completely useless and barely provided anything of substance to your team. It was just a negative byproduct of whatever characters you had together. If it was there, it was because it happened to be there. You were never seeking it out actively. And then, in Fontaine, they threw a curveball into the mix, and Chevreuse became a thing. That Fontainian cop single-handedly put the old reputation of Overload into jail. Which just goes to show how one good support, one really decent support for some sort of team archetype or reaction archetype can completely flip the switch and utterly revitalize a certain archetype's meta value. Another excellent example of this would be Farazan. There was actually a time where Xiao was kinda mid. He was never downright horrible, but he wasn't really a first choice. You wouldn't really go for him because, typically speaking, he required way too much investment to get okay performance out of him. You could do well with him, but there were just better options for cheaper. Then Farazan came along, and while his cost is still quite high, because getting a C6 Farazan is a task in of itself, it's actually quite worthwhile now, because the damage he outputs is very, very high. He became an extremely strong main DPS, and even to this day, he's still very worth using if you've put the investment into him. So if Escoffier is strong, and I have faith that she will be strong, then Cryo very well could make a comeback. It's actually a very realistic train of thought, and that excites me so much. Now I wouldn't blame anyone for completely checking out of Cryo as soon as possible. Like, that element has been in the gutter for a while. But as someone who's stuck through to the very end and highly invested in all of her Cryo characters, yeah, I'm happy with the idea that it may potentially become good again. I'm inhaling a whole lot of cryocopium here, but listen, there is a light at the end of a tunnel and I am chasing it. Now granted, I do think that physical is just gonna remain in the gutter indefinitely. I don't think Yola's ever gonna be saved, which just sucks, man. I think what's more realistic is that if they ever do save physical in particular, it's just gonna be through making a brand new physical DPS that has really, really high numbers, because if you do physical damage, then you need to do a whole lot of damage and be very, very ergonomic to use in order to make up for the fact that you can't really effectively use most reactions. Okay, they're superconduct, but then you have literally nothing else. As for the angle that they take, just let Cryo characters do a crap ton more damage, and I think we're honestly good to go. They have put some attention towards Melt recently, but the thing with Sitlali is that she doesn't really buff Cryos themselves. And while I do still really appreciate the fact that she single-handedly managed to raise the reputation of the Cryo element, I would appreciate if we could get something like Sitlali's A4, but for Cryo characters instead. Otherwise, they're gonna have to fix Freeze, and the way that they fix Freeze, well, here's the thing. The Abyss is mostly about bosses and boss fights, and those enemies are unfreezable, so they're just gonna have to make Freeze DPSs deal a whole lot more damage. The only other way I can imagine them fixing it is by entirely reworking Freeze, but I just don't think that they're gonna do that. All in all, I'm quite hopeful for Cryo's future. Not Cryo's coming up, Escoffier is coming up, and I think that I have every reason to believe that Cryo could very well be making its comeback. I might be just really, really high on the copium. I could. But I don't know. I simply have faith in Escoffier. I trust in the cutie patootie chef. Perhaps my faith is misplaced, but considering how Cryo has not been treated as harshly in recent times, whether that be directly or indirectly, and we do have a part of Snezhnaya coming up soon, I'm gonna choose to hold on to the hope that maybe, just maybe, us Cryo Glazers are finally gonna catch a break. But what do you think about all of this? Do you think that this is copium of the highest order, or do you agree that Cryo could be seeing a comeback soon? Let me know down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. As always, I have a ZZZ second channel. Head on over and subscribe if you're interested in some fun, silly ZZZ content. I'd also like to mention that I stream on Twitch. I stream once a week every week on Saturdays, started from 3 PM UK time. Come along so that we can play Wuthering Waves, ZZZ, and do some other fun stuff together. Hopefully this video was able to tell you why I personally think that Cryo might make a comeback. This has been Juice, signing out, and just give me more excuses to use my Cryo characters, man, I love them so much.